Hello and welcome everybody to our it's now the third time I believe, or the second time we run this webinar on the four types of generative AI applications in enterprise use cases. My name is Marcel. I am a computer scientist by trade. I have a PhD in the field of business process management. I've been doing AI since 2014, so that was before it was cool. In a time where the deep learning paper was published, or let's say the papers where you could finally use deep learning on graphics cards. So we have been coming a very long way since then. In my day-to-day life, I own a business called entAIngine, which is a platform for enterprise AI applications. And in my day-to-day life, I work with mostly enterprises in AI projects, either as a contractor or as someone who is giving the platform so that people can implement their applications themselves. And I made a lot of learnings and experiences over the years that I've been doing that, especially with generative AI since last year. So that's what you are going to hear today a little bit from me, is a combination of course, good academic knowledge, but also a lot of just hands-on experience that we have in, I think, over 18 proof of concept, and a portion of that in production now. So we've gone with companies of all sizes through different phases of the cycle of getting your hands into generative AI applications. What we are going to do today is we are going to do a short outline where we're going to talk about enterprise AI and processes. We are going to talk about the general architecture of enterprise generative AI. And then, of course, for the main topic of today, for the four types of generative AI and applications. We're going after a small little break for questions. We will get into the second part where we are going to take a view on the organizations and on technical ways on how to implement generative AI applications at scale that make an impact, a measurable impact to your organizations or the organizations of the clients. We have today a lot of, when I was just looking through the attendee list, we have a lot of people in this webinar today that are either enterprise AI leaders themselves or that are consultancies where these topics might be relevant. So that is our typical, let's say, that's the typical crowd that we have in here for today. If you should have any type of questions, my two lovely assistants, Faik and Amelia, are here. And if you have any type of content-related questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I will try to make short little breaks and not only be a movie for you for 45 minutes. And also in the end, we will have a little bit of a bigger Q&A round. But I'm trying to keep my eyes on here. But if it takes a couple of minutes until I'm getting to your question, please be patient. That might happen. So let's actually start with the meat of this webinar today. So before we start, yes, the deck will be made available if you send us an email that you want the deck. And you will be able to get the recording over a link that the folks are going to send you in the course of the next 2 days, I believe. So that's the setup for today. Let's get into the content. I have here a picture of an application that you probably all have used by now, and that's ChatGPT. There was about now over 1.5 years ago, so in late December of 2022, this new application that was basically a chat interface in front of what we call a large language model has been released and has gotten quite a lot of hype. And that's mainly for the reason that it is a that simple interface for a very complex technical model that lets us do quite a lot of different things. There were large language models before there was ChatGPT that were, let's say, more or less more or less good in the terms of the quality and the quality of the content that they could produce. But ChatGPT was the first real thing to make this accessible to a larger, it's like group of people that are not necessarily technical experts, that are not necessarily people that know how to make an API call to a service that is offered by some American company that is offering different models with different features. So this is where a lot of people in bigger enterprises have gotten their hands into enterprise generative AI. In the end, what you have here is a chatbot. Yeah, and chatbots are great for different types of situations, specifically when we have creative tasks where you need to interact with a chatbot over question answer type of things in processes that are always different. If you have a use case where you can tick these 4 boxes, then a chatbot in front of a large language model is very good for you. But there are other use cases where this, let's say, this interface of a chatbot is not really helping you, but where a large language model together with other types of orchestrating this model could be very beneficial to you. Let's say this example that we have here. Think about Jenny. Jenny is a financial controller at a big company. We actually have real world use cases that are pretty much exactly what we have here. And she wants to do invoice controlling. It works like this. She has an invoice and she has a certain a budget planned for certain items in the pre-planning, and she needs to match if the amount from the invoices for the items on the invoice match the things that they have in their plan. So how does she do that? Well, she sits there with ChatGPT. She is sitting there and she is iterating together with this chat interface over a list of, or let's say a sequence of different interactions. So first step, uploading the invoice. That works now in ChatGPT. You can upload data and saying, okay, is this 1,249 euros net? The chatbot needs a little bit of time, and in that time, she's waiting for the completion and says, yes, it works. And then we are looking into which cost centers we can map that to. And then, the chat interface with the large language model asks, what cost centers do you have? And then you provide a list, and then, we have contracting. So it's like a pattern if you have an expert that tells you how to do your things, but you cannot just offload it to this virtual expert because you need interaction. So in the end, the time that you save by doing these tasks, there is a time save, but is this really as good as we can have it? Because when we think about this process, and when we think about Jenny has to do the same thing basically for every invoice that this company has, and if you have 500 invoices every month, there's a lot of time that you will sit in front of ChatGPT doing always the same things. So when we think about the time that we save, let's say we need an hour for looking into 20 invoices, and we have what we call a manual one-time task with AI, which is exactly that type of situation that I have described. There is, if you do it manually without any ChatGPT, it takes you, or any type of generative AI, it takes you an hour. If you have 4 of these processes, it takes you 4 times 1 hour. So if we take a one-time task with a chat-based AI interface, we can save, let's say, just for the sake of it, 50% of the time. What is with the other 50% of the time? What do we spend it on? Well, we spend it with waiting for response, looking into the output that we get. So sometimes we don't get the answer back that we want. So we have to look into quality, errors and adjustments, and writing the prompts, of course. So we save 50% of the time, but there's still 50% of the time that we have for a case. And we don't only have that for that one case, but we have the same 50% of the time for every case, even though in each case we do the same thing. We upload an invoice, we ask for checking the numbers, then we ask for cost centers, then we ask for justification. That's quite a lot of time that we save. but it's not that we just give everything to ChatGPT and completely call it a day. So the question is really, is that as good as it gets? And when we dive a little bit deeper and we focus specifically on repetitive tasks, so not these one-time creative tasks, not these marketing content tasks, we say, hey, give me ideas on how I can phrase X, Y, Z. But these, let's say, these stupid tasks that are always the same, but still require a lot of time and effort by someone who is skilled in that specific field. So we feel like this is a stupid task, but of course it's not a stupid task. It's just a repetitive task in effect. So can we make this here better? When we think about what we really spend our time with is writing and copying the same prompts and adjusting it to different types of data, adjusting the prompts and manual quality control. And we can optimize this type of process further if we are abstracting ourselves away from a chat interface. But when we think about a process and a template for that process and some sort of more efficient interface. Let's talk about processes first, what we can do. In each of our, so this example with the invoice, let's call this a process. A process starts with an invoice and a cost center description, and it ends with the output, yes, the amount matches, yes, the cost center matches. Therefore, if you would like to build a template for that process, we have to think about cases. So we have 500 different invoices that we need to check every month. That's each of these invoices is a case. And then we have to define the input data to these cases and if they are case independent or case specific. So case specific data is in this case the invoice, because for every case we have a different invoice. But the cost centers, on the other hand, they are case independent because we globally in this company have these 5 cost centers and we need to associate them always to one of these 5. It's not that we are creating a new cost center because we have a new invoice that we don't know where to put. So that's the first type of distinction that we have to make when we think about building reusable processes and templates for these processes. Second, we need to talk about interfaces, because having somewhere here, getting step by step through this process and then inserting information manually is not really the most efficient way of doing that. So we can, if we can put a series of prompts into a template that we know that we are always taking the same prompts and we don't have any variation, at least on the prompt level, we can potentially reach a drastic improvement of quality by eliminating a big part of potential human error if done correctly. And if we are in this type of mindset, we have to realize that what we are doing is we actually build an AI-powered application and not a chat. Yeah, that interface might be a chat interface, but in most of the cases, it's not really the most efficient interface. So when we build an AI-based application, we still have to do the weighting, quality assurance, errors, adjustments, and writing the first prompt, but we only have to write that for one case or a couple of cases. Once we have this template, the only time that we have is by executing the actual templates that we have created. So that reduces our time much more and makes the quality better than and then when we look at these type of repetitive things. So when we are in this type of mindset, we have a really good way of saying, okay, this is a one-time effort that I have, and that's recurring benefits that I have with every case. And that's how you see impact and you make impact visible and you actually reach impact that you can harvest in your company. So how do we build, let's say, a structure where we can build these type of applications that are not necessarily chatbots at scale? And I have here, that's a model that I built myself. The kind of the archetype of any type of, let's say, larger scale organization that has not one application, but several applications that they need to run within their enterprise environment in their organization. And that is made out of layers like a cake. On the very bottom, we have hardware. So especially when we talk about generative AI, models are computationally very expensive. So it's not like you're making a database lookup and you will find the answer. There is a lot of compute power that has to go into evaluating these pre-trained stochastic models in the end and giving you an answer. That's what we call a chat completion. Then the model itself, that's the next layer, can be different types of models that you have. The most popular way of using that is AI model as a service. In the same way that you can use ChatGPT with a chat interface, you can use the model behind ChatGPT, in this case, at the moment, GPT 4.0, via an API without the chat interface. That's what we call model as a service, because you don't have a copy of that model. You're making a call with all of your data and your prompts and your information to a third party that is providing that to you. You can either get that with OpenAI, or you have a kind of semi on-premise version of a copy of that model when you go through the Microsoft Azure version of GPT 4.0. That's the let's say the most popular way of going it, because you don't have any type of overhead of managing a model, training or retraining models, or managing hardware. Of course, you can. There is a lot of different open source models out there that you can put in your own environment and orchestrate there completely in isolation. So, for example, the models that Meta, so the parent company of Facebook, is publishing, they're called Llama with 2 L's. Llama 3.1 being the latest, is an open source model that you can take, and if you have the hardware, run in your own cloud or in your own on-premise data center, and not have this problem of data being sent somewhere else for governance issues or for what it is. Or you can create your own model from scratch, which as long as you are not trying to compete with Google, I strongly discourage, because the capital expenditure that you need to have to build a general purpose model like OpenAI is super expensive. Yeah, and we are talking here double-digit millions, if not triple-digit millions, if not even more. I have no idea how much GPT-4 costed to train, but I can tell you that GPT 3.5 training costed more than $12 million just in compute training. Not even talking about the expertise, not even talking about intellectual property. Just that you have that in scale. And for GPT 4.0, which is 10 times bigger and more capable than GPT 3.5, it's probably also in a range of 10 times more that the costs to train this model and make it happen. So just that you have a little bit of a feeling about what massive undertaking it is to build a general purpose large language model that is trained on, I call it the combined wisdom of the Western world. There's other companies that do very specific smaller models that are on specific industry segments. So in Germany, we have here Aleph Alpha. It's a startup from Heidelberg. They trained the model specifically on data from the production industry. They received, I think, something like 100 million in funding from an industry consortium of the German big industry, SAP and Schwarzkopf and so. So they have a very specific focus on a very specific industry niche, and that's in their case, that's production. So in that case, this is handleable, just that you have a little bit of a feeling. We have then on the next layer in that model, still on the model layer, we can do fine-tuning of these models. So if you would like to use a model that has been pre-trained, you would like to fine-tune it on a use case, that's possible for most of the open source models and for some of the proprietary models. So GPT 4.0 is, I think, until the end of September, offering you free fine-tuning in Azure as a promotion. I don't have any affiliation with them. I just read the news. Yeah, so don't quote me on that. And we have, since these things cost, in terms of each execution cost, you have hardware costs if you host your own ones, and you have tool costs to operate all of these models. You need to have cost monitoring, because otherwise this might get out of hand very quickly. Then when you have a model, actually just putting a model there and doing whatever you want is not the most efficient way, or let's say it doesn't deliver the full potential of generative AI, specifically in the context of larger companies, because these models have been trained on the combined wisdom of the Western world. That's what I say. So if you are talking to a Chinese model, you will probably get a little bit different answers if you ask questions regarding world history, or from a Russian model. But at the moment, I don't think that the Russians have some sort of large language model that can compete with anything of that. But that's a different story for a different coffee session, I would say. When you have these models, you can lever it to the full potential only if you build a pipeline or several pipelines for retrieval augmented generation. Retrieval augmented generation basically take your own company data and orchestrate it in different processes. So you basically find context information that is relevant to the task that you currently have at hand, and you put it into as context data into a prompt completion. And this process is being called orchestration. So we orchestrate the process that is not a single prompt, but maybe also a series of different prompts where we iterate and where we get something out that we can in the end use on the application. And that's what I would call the reference architecture for enterprise AI. So of course, there's more tops I get, but this is an abstraction. So that's caching and observation and yada, yada, yada. But generally, from a high level of abstraction, you can. And if we talk about the 4 types of enterprise generative AI applications to the end user, we mostly talk about this application layer over here. I got a question from Thomas. How can AI secure sensitive data like a Chinese wall? In security companies, it's an issue. Yeah, so the only way that you can do that is either you trust your model provider, you trust the service level agreements that you have with Microsoft AI, with Microsoft Azure or OpenAI, or you completely have an on-premise model, or you orchestrate a pre-trained model completely on your premises, and you don't have any data being transmitted to the third party. Yeah, I was talking about the AI applications, the orchestration, and the vector data with the vector database and retrieval augmented generation. By the way, we have other deep dives into retrieval augmented generation. If you're interested in that, just shoot me a message. Today we need to be a little bit concise. And I would like to go with you over the 4 types of applications that we see. And you will always see here, because we build a product called entAIngine that basically implements these 4 types of applications, or gives you a no-code interface to build your own application that fits into one of these 4 boxes with and the first thing that I would like to show you is the AI process automation. So we always see a little bit of a demo here in the background that it's speed up by factor 100. So AI process automations are usually things that don't have a dedicated user interface, or that are integrated into your existing user interface. So in the example of Jenny, if you want to do invoice controlling, you build this process in several steps, you connect these steps together, and you insert the case-specific variables to them. And this process can then be hooked up to your existing bookkeeping system via an API. That's what we call a process automation application with AI, and can literally through an API be integrated into any type of system. Never mind what type of front end user-facing interface you need. That's helpful in many cases. We have chat applications. That's also something that we built on our platform. So you know how chat applications work. I've been telling you, I think, quite a lot about chat applications. So I'm not going to dive too deep into that. The other let's say, major big thing that I see a lot of use cases currently for are what we call knowledge search applications. This year is with a customer from the Netherlands, and they are working with pension funds. And they are looking to support their internal people with some knowledge that they have not hallucinated together in a model, but where they have a specific knowledge base where they would like to find this model, this information. In this case, we have a bunch of information that tell you how you handle different types in the orchestration. I am being asked to slow down a little bit. Yes, I can do, Paul. So this process that you see here in what we call a knowledge search application does the following. We have in the first step, we have what we call a vector store retrieval. So for this customer, we got a bunch of different documents, regulatory documents that explain how you handle new processes in the Dutch pension system. So what happens if a customer wants to transfer money from one fund to another? What happens if they want to reduce or increase their rates? So this is all information that lives usually in a company in an assortment of different type of Word documents, PDF documents, databases, is flowing somewhere around. Yeah, and we would like to search. And every time we search, we would like not only to get the answer, but we also would like to get the source where we get this answer from. And this is the real power that we get with the large language model. So we are making a two-step process. The first step in this process is creating the retrieval of the information. And in the second part of the process, we take this information. So it's basically a chunk of data that we get from a PDF document, and we answer the question that a user has, depending on the context data that we retrieved with our vector store retrieval. And our platform automatically builds an end user interface so that you don't have to code. That looks a little bit like Google. So you type in here your question and you press go. And then after a couple of seconds, you get here on the left side, you get your answer with a translation to English because this client here is Dutch. And you get a link to the very specific source. And this is here something that is fundamentally different than your typical keyword search, than if you would search in your Explorer in Windows for something. Because this vector base has basically an encoding of the different, let's say, the semantics behind these words that are there. So with that, we can do something that's called semantic search. We have other webinars where we're diving deeper into semantic search, but the difference between semantic search and keyword search is basically the following. Keyword search, if you are looking for chair in a database that only has the terms seat, you will never find seat. Because, I mean, a seat is something like a chair without legs, yeah? But a keyword search doesn't understand the semantics. It's only looking if the letters kind of match. And seat and chair don't have any letters in common that would match. With semantic search, we have trained on a model all of these semantics that a seat is basically a chair without legs that is mounted somewhere, and we would find these type of things. So that's the type of this differentiation that we do with retrieval augmented generation in these type of knowledge-based search applications. Paul, I hope that made it a little bit more clear. Because I'm going now to the fourth type of application. That's the last type of application we will look into today before we go into organization topics. We have a lot of use cases that I saw where you are doing something which is, I would say, semi-supervised, but not to an extent that it is so far that you have to interact with a chatbot. Because many of the cases are centered actually around creating documents. So think about you are in the contracting phase with a supplier. You have to create a purchasing document. That's basically the use case that we are doing here. And you have to fill out certain parts of, let's say, a standard template step by step. But it's not so that the end product that the large language model gives you, or that your orchestration pipeline gives you, you can take it to a 100%. You need to make here and there a couple of tweaks. And that's where this interface, where you're in something that looks like, here, let me make a quick pause over here, that looks like a Microsoft Word version, very helpful. So you create basically the outline of the document, and then you iteratively take predefined process templates, for example, for filling in section A, for filling section B, and for formulating, I don't know, the warranty part of your things. These are all different process templates that when you combine them together, you can create your whole agreement in this case. And this type of, it's semi-interactive, but it's not really chat, but it's really document-centered. And that's what we call an editor application, is one of the most, let's say, one of the most helpful ways of working with these type of applications. I have here a nice little comparison and summarization. I have already told you that what we have here, but you will, if you write us an email and you ask for the slides, you will get that, and it will be in the recording, of course. Because I would like now to take a little bit of a step back, and now that we have established these 4 types of generative AI applications, we have to talk about actually how we can make them happen. And that's where we go into the view of organizations. So we have worked with many different types of use cases, with many different types of enterprises or smaller companies, but they all go through the same type of journey from the decision we are doing now something with AI until we have a productive use case. And when people got their first hands on generative AI with something like ChatGPT, usually these companies, they don't have a problem of having ideas. So there's usually more ideas than you can ever try out and test. So we have a whole bucket of different types of ideas that we would like to evaluate and see if we can do. Then we see a lot of then there's actually the standard process we have. You can't go for every use case because you have just capacity issues somewhere. If you are a company that can look into all of their operations and try to automate everything right from the start, and you don't have any type of capacity issues, I would love to work with you, but that's usually not the experience that we have. So you need to make a prioritization of which of these use cases are potentially and economically impactful, so they justify spending time and resources on building a proof of concept. And we see that especially in larger organizations, there's usually a group of different stakeholders that is making this decision with what we are going for. And that's usually the type of processes where you can save the most amount of time and the most amount of money. Then these pre-selected use cases go into a POC building stage, where let's say we validate feasibility, if we can actually reach these gains that we hoped for in a lab environment. And that's where the 4 archetypes of these generative AI applications come in. So far, we could map about 92% of all of our use case to at least one of these 4 types of applications, and basically work with the platform because we have implemented an no-code interface to do all of these things right from the start. Then when you have implemented and you have tested out these applications, of course, you need to evaluate them, and you need to make a second decision. So for some of the proof of concepts, not all proofs of concepts are going to be successful. If all of the proof of concepts would be successful, then you wouldn't need a proof of concept, right? Then you would just say, okay, we directly implement it. But some of them will not work for a bunch of different reasons. Maybe the model is not capable to do things. Maybe the process is too complex. Maybe the interfaces don't work out. Maybe the data that you actually need is not available. Maybe there is political issues with governance. So I can tell you a whole list of different things of why these projects fail. It's in often cases not only related to tech. There's also a human factor that has to be taken into account sometimes. But in the end, a company has to make a decision which of these applications you actually would like to go to production with. I was again asked to list the 4 types of applications again. The 4 types of applications are AI process automations, knowledge search, chat applications, and editor applications. That's number 4. And the ones that you have in here, in this stage of selecting to go to production, in 92% of these use cases, you can map them to one of these 4. And then it's about building and integrating these proof of concepts into larger scale rollouts that you have. And yeah, there is sometimes, the people that say, okay, we are building a proof of concept and then rebuilding again. But yeah, there's different aspects to this part. But in the end, you have to have a pre-productive phase. We're doing systems integration, we are doing final polishing, quality control, and having a productive version that you can actually roll out. And I would like to tell you a little bit about pitfalls in this process. And I have seen all of these pitfalls in projects in the past. So this year is a little bit of my learnings. If you have 50 use cases, don't build 50-point solutions. Go and get one specific platform on which you can build stuff on your organization fast. So if you have 50 use cases, don't get developers and tell them to use LangChain and build something on LangChain with code. Have something that scales better with ideally something that's no code. If you are working for a consultancy company of some sort and you are doing projects with generative AI, it is worth the time on looking into these type of platforms. Of course, I built one of these platforms, but there's others out there. Actually, not too many, but there's others out there. If you need to scale that, the amount of time that you will waste by always building point solutions with code and with small little gadget doesn't help you. You need one unified thing that can scale across your organization or the organization of your client at scale. You will see much higher return on investment than always building a point solution, throwing away a point solution and building another point solution for production. Doesn't make sense. Don't isolate the POC phase from production. That causes a lot of disconnection because we here actually, when we build these proof of concepts, we build very close to a business case and monitor very close what the return on investment, what the impact of that application is. Have a continuous process with feedback loop from people that actually use that thing in production and not say, okay, now a proof of concept and now we have a year of production. Yeah, I did before we were doing generative. I did a lot of blockchain projects. People didn't understand blockchain, what it can do. People still don't understand it today and what you actually use it for. But that's a different topic. I don't want to digress. Here with enterprise generative AI, it is super obvious. You have a process and you have an as-is process. You make this as-is process better by using generative AI. You need to look into prompts, into orchestration, into a retrieval augmented generation, into governance, and into data, and eventually into models. That is the types of things that you have to handle. And the closer you implement with feedback loop from real world practitioners, the more successful or the more chances of success you have. Paul is asking what I mean with a platform. With a platform, I mean a layer in your organization where you can focus on building the application layer and you can abstract away from all of the overhead of managing models, setting up rack workflows manually, doing all of this orchestration. That's a platform. A platform where you can basically build templates for processes and you can orchestrate it using the same basis. That's what I consider to be a platform. If you are, so I see a lot of organizations that purchase Microsoft Copilot licenses and then just give it out to people, just hoping for the best without any concrete objective. Don't do that. That's not helping. A lot of people in the beginning might get happy for it, but you need to get very quickly into a way where you give clear objectives. Let's say we want to make our customer support 10% faster. We want to make our RFP process 50% better. Give them clear objectives if you go for the route for we build in-house, and let them try within defined goals. The one thing that I really see a lot, people just get this subscription and say, here, you can make your life more better, now go. And then they ask why they don't see the return on investment and on the stupid Microsoft Copilot license. Yes, because you need this process thinking, you need to have clear goals and you need to have clear measurements. Otherwise, all of that is just a waste of money. Don't think that every solution is unique and you need to reinvent for every use case something completely from scratch. We have talked about these 4 types of generative AI applications: AI process automations, chat applications, knowledge search applications, and editor applications. And you can kill 90% of all of your use cases in generative AI with it. Again, I'm always talking about generative AI. I'm not talking about fraud detection, anomaly detection, something with other types of models. I'm always talking about generative AI models. Scaling. Each of these completions, these chat completions or these model calls to a pre-trained model have costs. Have these costs in mind from the beginning. Otherwise, you will have a potentially very unpleasant awakening once you see your builds. And especially if you look for processes that you don't do once a month, but that you do 500, 1,000, 2,000. We have customers that have processes that they repeat 6,000 times a month. It adds up. Yeah, just because one instance of a process only costs you €2. Yeah. If you have 6,000 instances of that process, it's €12,000. And if you can cut these costs in the very beginning, you should do that. A lot of people, when they talk about quality and dissatisfaction about the quality of what they get out, is they blame the model. They say, oh, it's not good enough. In most of the cases, the key variable that you actually have to look into is the right orchestration, building the right templates, getting the right data inserted at the right point in time, having a series of prompts after each other to produce a highly reproducible, high quality output. And so before you start blaming a model, look into your process and do this prompt engineering. By the way, we also have a course on prompt engineering that we can also send out to you, how to build these things helpfully and get to them. And finally, start by testing with small samples with an input user. But if you really want to prove that your application helps and is going to work in production, go for quantitative evaluation. Evaluate these outputs with automations wherever it is possible. Stephen is asking, do you need to have one person team working full-time or can this be carried by various people who are also doing their day job? Either way, Stephen, it depends on how big your company is. I work with big multinationals that have full teams dedicated only to support others with building their applications. I have others, smaller companies, where it's basically just, the guy who you go to for generative AI. It depends on the scale of what you are trying to do. I'm more than happy to help you and to get, if you have that in your company, do a little bit of point-specific consulting on that part, where I can share a little bit more about specific cases. But the thing is, it depends on, of course, your ambition. and it depends on the amount of people that you and the amount of data that you have to handle. That's basically the answer. So I know not a very satisfying answer. It's an it depends answer, but that's just how it is. So let's maybe recap that. You can how you do that. You can implement your own what I call platform in-house as a company, or help if you're a consultancy company, a big company, implement this type in-house. You can get a complete external solution. That's actually what I provide. We have no implement effort, but only integrations and customization options. And or you go for a hybrid solution. That's actually what I also do, where I take our platform, I deploy it on the premises of a customer, and I help them using it at their white label platform. This is basically what I do in my day-to-day life. We have this wonderful platform that I have that you have seen in videos, but that I also would like to show to you here in person. That's called entAIngine, and in entAIngine you have basically predefined modules for these for different types of applications that you can handle. So this here is an editor applications. There's tons of different features for editing the workflows, for analyzing usage history, credit usage. We have a test bed, we have onboarding, and we have different AI models that you can use at any given point in time, and auto-generate just standard interfaces. That's my tool of choice. Okay, my team at the moment, 12 people implement this, so of course it's my tool of choice. And we work with customers either in a way that we build applications with our platform for them, or we upskill existing teams to use this platform in-house and build many different types of applications. So that's the we build for you versus we help you build approach that we have. If any of those information that I have given to you, today is interesting, you have more questions, or you would like to talk about a very specific project, please feel free to book a meeting with me. I'm more than happy to look into your question. And with that, I'm at the end of my presentation for today. We're having now a couple of more minutes for Q&As. I hope you had an insightful time, and I'm going just now through the chat and see if there's any questions. Was there anything that I have missed? My side, I might have missed something in terms of questions.
Yeah, you need to respond to Paul messages.
Okay.
Yeah.
Paul, you asked, are there any applications used that you think would be useful but are surprised not being adopted? I have seen a lot of different types of adoption for many different and interesting use cases. So there is potentially a lot of things that I don't even know. But so far, let's say everything that I see obvious. So I'm not an industry expert in any industry. I'm industry agnostic. I'm a process expert. So I can't really give you detailed industry insights. We have a network of what we call satellite partners. So we sell our platform not only directly to customers, but we also partner with companies, consultant companies that basically white label our platform and use that as their platform to work with their customers. And those, we call them satellites and partners, are usually much more subject matter experts in that field. We have partners, for example, in production. We have partners in capital management. We have a satellite in AI for legal. So depending on who you ask of them, you will get probably different answers, but so far, yeah. And by the way, if you are a consultancy company and you're looking for partnerships to scale your efforts and you would like to white label this platform over here, just this is the link. Book a meeting with me and we can talk. Paul, you're also asking, have you seen anyone connecting these applications to blockchain and smart contracts? No, I have not, because I am at the moment completely out of the blockchain game. There is too many applications. So everybody is telling me about, every time there is a new trend, the convergence of old trend versus new trend. Yeah, that's a typical discussion that I always have. I have to that part not seen a single useful case. Of course, you can tokenize here learnings from large language models in a way that's the only use case that I see right now, where you are training, where you have some sort of a distributed learning or federal learning approach, and you are compensating people that contribute their data for a new model. That's actually the only use case where I see at the moment a blockchain comes in really handy. But I don't force a technology on another just for the sake of it. And at the moment, honestly, I have a very strong opinion in blockchain, even though I've been working there a lot. There's only a handful of use cases where blockchain even makes sense. And let's say the subset of these use cases where also generative AI makes sense are very small. Say that. Stephen is happy, Isabella is happy. There are a lot of people that are very happy. Joe, you are asking if we are looking for partners or reps in the United States. In fact, Joe, yes, we are, because we are right now planning on opening up a country office in the United States, and we are looking for partners on the ground. So if that's interesting for you, we will set something up with you, and we're talking a little bit more in detail about that. More than happy to.
That sounds great. I'll send. I'm in your app to get it on your calendar. Thanks.
Thank you very much. James is asking for the editor application. Okay. Actually, I will give you another kind of editor application example than what I have shown you. Might be interesting for you. This here, what you see is Equitas. That's our legal AI satellite. So we are working there with a partner who is an expert in legal processes. And we have there a customer, and I have no problem to name them over here. That's why I can show that to you, which is a international corporate law firm. They have offices in Manchester and London, in Berlin and Budapest, in New York City and Austin, and probably God knows what in other parts of this country. So we built an editor application for them that is focusing on the following process. They get an inquiry from a customer or a potential customer, a lead, where a customer is saying, hey, I'm looking for a person who knows X, Y, and Z and can help me with this and this project. And we build an application for them that is an editor application that lets them draft that answer to that inquiry in a very helpful way. And we call this the expert search. So we have here the example that actually, I have crypto again as an example, Paul. So you feel yourself picked up again. So this is an email. It says, "Dear team, I hope this email finds you well. My name is Bob Bobson. I'm the founder of Crypto Crypto. We are currently raising a 50 million Series B venture capital round, and I am planning to combine this with an initial coin offering. I'm looking now for a lawyer who is specifically experienced in capital transactions and cryptocurrency law. Do you have anybody also who can take care of the legal and the regulatory compliance of this process?" So that's the input. We built this process behind this editor application in a second, but I will show that to you in a second what happens behind the scenes. We are pressing now generate, and what we are doing now is the initialization of a new document is happening. And that's a process that takes the inquiry, extracts the 4 key points of that inquiry, and then searches in a vector database where we have all of the profiles of all of the partners from that legal company, and is finding the 10 people that fit best to that use case. And then in the next step, describing why they fit this project, and the last step describing how they putting that into a mail. So that editor application basically creates initially a proposal for you that you can edit iteratively. And this specific company only wants to send out the profiles of 3 people, but therefore a little bit more than the 3 people. So we are searching for the 10 best matches, and we are just getting rid of the people that we don't want to have in. So based on that, I want Wolfgang, I want Sebastian, and I want Arnold. These are my 3 people that I would like to have. And then I would like to dive a little bit deeper into them. So we have here other, we call it snippets. Snippets are like text building blocks, but that are dynamic. So when we have here an expert deep dive, I have to say, okay, I'm using this, this inquiry, and I would like to give now not a 3-sentence, but a 3-paragraph introduction about that part. So that's a process where we initiated the document, and now we are iteratively working with predefined templates to make this document better. And then we start one of these snippet executions, and we have here, let's say, a longer profile of Wolfgang Richter that I can put in here and work now iteratively on this document like you would do with a document. And that's what we call editor application. You have different processes with AI that you need to pull together, and in the end have something that is some sort of a document, an email, an Excel sheet, and whatever it is, a document in your hand that you can send out. So, okay, I hope that made this is a very interesting use case. But James, I hope that helped you. You asked if you consider a redline function a tool that would find certain clauses in legal contracts that may require change, and would that this be a process application or the editor? Perhaps both. Yes, both. And I actually have this type of application with a different customer when we are iterating over procurement contracts and when we're negotiating contract terms. We have one version built in an editor and one in a process application. So it works in both. And if that's one of your use cases, I have experience in exactly that field. If you need some support, please feel free to send me an email.